Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's all right. This looks good. Okay, let's check it out here. Good Radio Romania English, really good. 7375. Radio Romania English 7375. Not bad. So, hello, everybody. Nice to have you on board and giving time for the ads to kick in for those that have ads. Nice to have you here, my friends. And we are in the Wednesday edition of the live show. We talk about radio, we talk about shortwave, we talk about medium wave, AM, we talk about all sorts of radio. And we just have a lot of fun talking about all of this here. So I'm just going to put this a little more here, like this. I think I'm going to move on a little bit like that. Here we go. The on the air sign isn't that nice. There's a lot of light reflecting on it. I'll try to fix that at some point. So nice to have you here, all of you. This is the Shortwave Live Show at Wednesday edition. We are live twice a week on Wednesday for North America, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's Thursday for most of the world at 0 UTC. And we are live on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 20 hours UTC. Remember that next week, June 8th, and I'll repeat it a couple of times during the show, next week, Wednesday, June the 8th, we are not going to be here. And that's because I have a concert to attend, and that is going to be a night where me and Sheldon Harvey are going to see Kraftwerk 3D. I think it's going to be a fun experiment, fun show to attend. And so next week, Wednesday, we're not going to be live, exceptionally, but we are going to have a show this coming Saturday. So this is, of course, going to be a lot of fun. We have a chat room that is great with amazing people. And that is also where you can actually go and talk with others and have fun with others. And this is a great place for newbies. And if you're new to the hobby, I mean, great people that are here to help you out. And they're just like really, really nice. So it's pretty cool. And well, you can ask questions, you can chit chat with everybody and have fun. We've got some great people here that just waiting to help, and it's kind of fun because say it all the time, this is a solitary hobby, and that actually the chat room makes it much more interesting. We have the impression of being with other friends, other people that like the same thing we do. We are radio geeks, we are people that sometimes people look at us and they're like, yeah, what are you doing? It's so weird listening to the static. I think we all have heard that at least once in our lives. Like, what are you listening in that static? And basically, this is a great place where all of us are gathered together in our show. Really, really nice. The Facebook group is where you can actually go and continue the party after this party is over here. You can, of course, go to the Facebook group and post what you're listening to. It's fun to see the radios. It's fun to see what people are listening to. It's fun to see the interaction, people um, having, the having responding to questions or comments, or just great discussion, great people, very clean group. Once again, we are very, very selective. We have a lot of moderators to make sure that nothing bad happens. This is why I think it's a great group. I've been on many, many Facebook radio groups. You end up kind of saying the hell with it, because you see the kind of the quality of the post, or the rants that go on, and you're like, no, 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 no. This is not what I want. It's actually why it took a long time before I started a Facebook group, because I was like, yeah, if I see all the other Facebook groups evolve, was kind of scared that that group, and especially as it's growing, because we're at 2,600 members roughly. It gets difficult to control after a certain time, but nope, pretty good, works pretty well. And you know what, the moderators are doing a great job in maintaining order, and that's what makes it fun to be there, honestly. So this is, of course, going to be a great place for those that want to continue learning also. Today we're going to talk about something. I've got an email, actually. Before I forget, let me check the emails right now. But we got an email from a fan, Giuseppe, that is in Italy. And so he's been listening for a long time, but his question is simple: is, what are the different types of communications that we can hear on the shortwave bands? He knows international broadcasts. He knows that there's amateur radio, but what else? And there's that what else is actually a lot. It's really, really cool. We got Richard Lemke from St. Albert, Alberta, saying hello. Hi, hello there, my friend Richard. He says it's 20 degrees Celsius. He's hearing a Radio Havana, Cuba on 11880. A late start to the English hour. So pretty cool. Nice to have you here, Richard. And have a nice radio fun evening. And of course, we will talk about shortwave and answer a little bit of Giuseppe's question about what else is there on the bands to listen to. And there's quite a lot of stuff. So cool to have all of you here. So my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. We are here to entertain. We're here to just, have fun with radio. There's super chat functionality. So if you guys want to give a little tip, goes towards buying radios. I'm still also this week been thinking a lot about doing something. I don't know yet what, but maybe trying to do some kind of little funding drive for, I've talked about it off and on for the past, but cost money. And before I get into it, I have to make sure that, it'll be worth it. But maybe having some kind of show via WRMI, an hour show or something, is something I've been thinking very seriously in the past few weeks and months. But especially in the last few weeks, I was like, yeah, okay, what could we do with that? So anyways, if something really pops up very seriously, I want to talk about it a little more. I think it could be a lot of fun. Add some other stuff that's not Brother Stare. I think is going to be a good idea on the shortwave bands. So Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL in Morgan City, Louisiana, USA. Nice to have you here. Michael, nice to have you here. James Farley, nice to have you on board from Old Bridge, New Jersey. KD2GUZ. John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Alan, nice to have you here from the UK. Michael is in New Jersey, Northern New Jersey. Mark Cobb, WA5153, SWL in Dallas, Texas. We have James Farley listening to Shannon Volnit on 13264. We have Matt, MDK2. Nice to have you on board from Denver, Colorado. Chuck, N5KVO from South Texas. Larry, N2ICZ. Nice to have you here. Tosenloaf from Alabama. Nice to have you on board. What digital mode is that on 7095 USB? Olivia? It could be Olivia. It could be. There's a lot of modes that are very similar, sound like Olivia, but it's there's a lot of stuff going on. Often I'll take FLDG and try the different standards. Like for example, Olivia is often on the standard. Is most of the time they use 16500, so you can try that. But sometimes it's really just trying different modes and hoping for the best to get to the the decode the signal. One thing for sure, it's an amateur digital mode that's there. That's definite. Cheers, everybody, with standard vodka cranberry. Nice to have you all here. Alan's listening to Radio Romania. Keegan DXer, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Nice to have you on board. Eric Cottrell. Well, no, I actually didn't have the smoked meat pizza because I ordered from a new place, and they did not have that on the menu, but they had one with 3 different kind of meats, so I took that, and it was good. It was actually good. Nice to have you here from the Boston area. Art Dodd, nice to have you here. K2ADC from New Jersey. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you here from Winsville, Missouri. W80113SWL. John K6RXD, nice to have you here. Keegan DXer missed the show last Saturday as his internet was down. Michael, one radio I'm using tonight. Tonight is the Texan PL990X and the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery as the 2 radios that I'm actually using, just like I was using last week. Mark Schmidt, nice to have you here from Maine. The Lone Wolf Ottawa, VE3 BNS, nice to have you on board. Thank you very much. John K6RXD is in Los Angeles, California. DJW883, nice to have you on board from a hot southeast Pennsylvania. I was listening to a tech show today, and one of the people that was on the tech show via their virtual Zoom was in New York, and she was saying that it's very hot in New York. Here it's cool. We're stuck in a kind of a cool pattern right now, so it's not cold, but it's we had one warm day, which was Sunday, but we immediately on Monday came back to really cold weather. Jeff King, nice to have you here from Jacksonville, Florida. Happy National Yellow Radio Day. Huh, okay. Do I have a yellow radio here? Yes. Well, I have an orange one, which is the Texan PL368. Close enough, I guess. Close enough. I have a hand crank one that's yellow. Yes, also, gotta say. Lone Wolf Ottawa. Channel is great. Helped me pass my basic, now advanced, and still learn stuff here. Cool. It's like every hobby in every aspect of the hobby. Yeah, we never, we always learn, and I think we always have something that we don't know about. And I mean, it's such a vast hobby and a vast, and complex thing of radio waves and radios and modes and so many things to talk about. There's always something new also, because it's something that's always very kind of an evolving state, and so there's always something to learn, and it's cool. And so I think it's I same here. I started listening in 1982, and all I can say is at at just learning. I'm learning still today. There are aspects of the hobby I don't know that much about. There are things that you just kind of get in and learn more about. Definitely, there's tons of things I don't know about the hobby, also. But we all learn together, and I think this is fun. And some of you have more knowledge on certain aspect of the hobby than I do. My knowledge, I do have knowledge about all sorts of things that are, the general knowledge of radio and with my all the years that I've been doing this. So it's kind of cool, and I'm happy if people learn stuff here. That's one of the first things. I think that I'm happy with that. And if we're helpful also in getting you set up and having you use what you have as equipment, learn what's out there to listen to. And tonight, that's a little bit what we're going to examine: learning what's out there to listen to. I think there's a lot of stuff that's we could still learn, and everybody still learns, and I think we will always learn until the end about different little things on what is a fantastic hobby, and not just a hobby. It's for some it's work, for some it's more than just a hobby. It definitely is great. uh what else do we have? What else do we have? So congratulations on that license. Of course, I'm licensed too. Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India. It's my call sign. Need to get on the radio a little more. I really need to get to the radio a little more. John R6 K6RSD says not being curious about the world and fascinated with radio is weird to me. You know, it's we all have a different way of thinking, a different way of viewing stuff. It's interesting because there's a curiosity. There's a curiosity about that I think is what has us continuing on this hobby. We're curious about stuff, and radio is mysterious. Invisible waves coming to a little box from far away, and then you're hearing something, and you can communicate. I mean, there's a mystery there. It's not everybody that gets that mystery. Honestly, there's a lot of that some people just don't get. And like I was saying at the beginning, I think we all went through that phase where we're listening to something and somebody's gonna just pop up and say, "Oh, well, I'm listening to that static again." And yeah, yeah, and there's nothing we can change or do for that. You can't force somebody into the hobby when they just don't see the point of it. One funny moment I had with a friend of mine is guy loves motorcycles, and actually almost built his motorcycle from scratch. And the guy tweaks it, and it's like it's his little baby. And I mean, it's nice and everything, but I'm not inclining to the motorcycle. I don't. It's not something that I would be passionate about knowing how it works and how it's built. It's just not my thing. Although I kind of find it nice and interesting. These are machines that are kind of cool. It's like a car. Same thing. These machines are kind of cool when you think about it, how they work and everything. But he had given me a few years ago, his comment was, "I can't believe people watch your channel talk about radio." And as a joke, I looked at him and I said, "You know what? There's even worse. There are people that go on YouTube and watch motorcycle videos." And he had a big laugh with that. And I said, "Yeah, Everybody likes different things, and that's fine. I mean, that's what makes the world cool. That we don't all love the same thing. If everybody would be on shortwave and love shortwave and nothing else, well, I think it'd be a boring world because there wouldn't be other stuff to talk about. Now there's different stuff to talk about, different hobbies, some that kind of touch with our radio hobby at the same time. How many of us have met radio geeks that love astronomy or electronics, or they kind of go together sometimes, and it's kind of cool. It is kind of cool, honestly. Let's continue down the chat. We have Man Radio DXer. Good morning in Europe. Nice to have you on board. Keegan DXer, with the help of my dad, W9JEF, ordered a new radio on Amazon, a C Crane CC Skywave SSB on Thursday, coming in the mail, and given to me this morning, June 1st. Have fun. Have fun. We'll have, it's a neat little radio. I mean, it's not my favorite personally, but it's not like I was saying, it's not a bad radio. It's a neat little radio. And one of the rare radios that exist with, shortwave and the NOAA weather channels at the same time. Alan, nice to have you here from the UK. VT Radio, nice to have you here. Paul, from Essex Junction, Vermont. AA1SU. So did you finally do that portable day with your radio, or was your radio badly damaged with the leaked batteries, Paul? James Farley says, been a Kraftwerk fan for over 40 years. Radioactivity is in the air for you and me. Yep. Joe Rodman, nice to have you here from Chicago area. Joe in Newmarket, Virginia, nice to have you on board with a pleasant 81 degrees. Watching from the deck, that's perfect. Charles Williams, nice to have you here from San Diego. We have Alan, not about running, do you hang wrong to Hover? Paul Taylor was reading all the great stuff about Texan R9700DX, only to discover it is virtually impossible to get in the UK at the moment with English text. Not at a decent price anyway. There are radios that are difficult to get. I was looking at, somebody was showing a Kato KA29. The lowest price here in Canada to get that thing is about $125, which I don't think it is worth personally. It is actually almost feels like a rebadged Tivdio V115 or the Prunus G401, something like that. When I look at the display, I look how it is. It really, really, really seems to be a pretty amazing thing. But when you compare it, and it's interesting because there's a bunch of these radios, the KA29, the what is it? The KA29, there's, like I said, the Prunus J401, Tivdio, and also known as different other brands, V115. It's as if they took an external box with buttons and took the same circuitry, but just kind of rebadged and reworked it a little bit. So it's kind of cool. Brian Venterheimer, nice to have you here from British Columbia. We have Yvonne, nice to have you here from Ontario. John Hummel Newell, VE5 JHN. Nice to have you on board. Says the wind blew his antenna down today. So, I guess you're going to have to build another one. Jetcrafter, nice to have you here from Southern Maine. Bob, nice to have you on board from Nashua, New Hampshire. So, Happy National Radio Yellow Radio Day, except that I still don't have a yellow emergency radio. Yeah, I got one, which is down there. So I got one yellow. Yeah, not every. You know what, Eric? The smoked meat pizza is more of a local pizzeria thing, more than because I ordered from kind of a fancy pizza place, so they usually don't have that kind of pizza. But the local pizza restaurants, the corner pizza restaurant, will have that with smoked meat in general. Kerry James, nice to have you here from Knoxville, Tennessee, W4KEJ. Greg, nice to have you on board. Was watching Totterbird and as a St. Gian Pure D17 in wave FM stereo. For the visually impaired, the radio talks to you. Oh, that's interesting. DJW883, thank you so much for the tip. Much appreciated. Zen Pharaohs, nice to have you here. And has 4XZ on 6607. Let's check that out. 6607. That is 4XZ out of here we go. Israel. Yeah, it's there. It's very weak tonight. Very weak tonight. I could see that 6604 has the Gander Newfoundland Volmet. Chris 66. Good evening. Thank you for the decoding video the other day. Well, I hope it helped in some way. Thank you, the Lone Wolf Ottawa. Bob Raymond, nice to have it. Thank you so much for the tip. Really nice to have it. Really nice to have a little tip to help out. Thank you very much. James Barley, have you ever tried Sorcerer for Windows? It works well, but crashes on Olivia mode. No, I've never tried that. I've heard that a long time ago. Kind of completely forgot about it. I need to check that out. Paul Taylor listening to Mystery Radio on 4870, coming in nicely from Germany. Cool. Keegan DeXer says in the Texas Panhandle says June 1st, only 57. When you look at the map of the temperature, there's kind of this really deep, cool weather pattern, and it goes really, really far south. To the west of that, you guys have it hot. To the east of that, everybody has it hot. But Montreal is kind of at the edge part of that cool temperature. We're not going to have more than about 70, 71 Fahrenheit for the next 2 weeks almost. We're really, really in a cool weather pattern right now. Rush Time Machine says he learns stuff here. I hope so. It's cool. Bob, nice to have you here. WA2SQQ, first time listener. Nice channel. Thank you very much. Christian Marcoux, salut. J'espère que tu vas bien. Nice to have you here from North Bay, Ontario. Canada. John Beckham. Shortwave DXing will always be both exciting and intriguing to me. Just wanted to say thanks for your live shortwave radio stream. Thank you so much. RJD Dakota, I know a lot, but I come here and I still learn something new every day from each and every one. Stuart Hall, nice to have you here. We have so the live shows, Bob, WA2SQQ, are twice a week. They're 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesday. That's 0 UTC. Thursday, technically. And Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 20 hours UTC. There's no fixed time limit, so they can last anywhere from, they could be short. They rarely are less than 2 hours. And most of the time, they hover around 3. Sometimes they extend. Our record, I think, is 5 hours and 30 minutes. It depends on how the flow goes, what people have to say, what we have to talk about. Something interesting pops up on the radio. Like last week, when the ending was kind of interesting, when I called the Canadian Coast Guard number on that NAVTEX transmission, turned out to have Sarah from the Canadian Coast Guard pop up. That was kind of fun, and we made her night shift. I mean, she was like thrilled to have a call of that kind. I don't know how many calls they get on that phone, but it must be, one of those that probably doesn't have that many. And to have a bunch of radio geeks, uh, you know, listening in and talking about it, I think she got a nice kick out of that. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Okay, let's continue down the list. We have. We have. JD Dakota still magical to me that I can hear a strange signal from halfway around the world. Absolutely. Storms, radios, and cats. Nice to have you on board. Marvin Mutz, playing around with radio is the closest way an irrational mind can experience the mystery of the real world. Astronomy is a form of radio. Yep. Nice to have you on board from the Japan Islands. We have John Beckham, always been intrigued at the 15 to 18,000 kilohertz frequency range, in particular to the Far East shortwave broadcast stations. Adesh Manar, nice to have you on board from Trinidad. Hope you are well, my friend. Patrick from Washington State, nice to have you here. Yvonne is watching from the Trans-Canada Trail. Cool. Wow, James, thank you so much for the nice tip. Much appreciated. Gabe's radio channel, nice to have you here. Then Farrow's just above 6754 upper sideband. Is about 15 kilohertz of digital over your horizon radar, probably, which the last time you saw, if you said it was different than what you had seen before. Yeah, let's go check that out. 754. So we have definitely have Trenton military. Yeah, that radar is definitely one of those weird kind of radars. I want to do a series of videos that I'll talk about different radars that I actually receive and give kind of the info about what it is. By the way, you guys, if you want to have an amazing list, I posted so in the June Messenger, my utility column is like 20 pages long. It's really long because what I did is the Canadian Coast Guard has the issued a new publication with everything Canadian Coast Guard. It's a PDF publication and it's brand new. It was released on May 27th. And it actually has a very accurate and full schedule of every single transmission from the Canadian Coast Guard, voice, digital, both on shortwave and on the medium wave band, and from every station around Canada that actually broadcasts information from the Great Lakes, from Iqaluit, from Resolute and Nunavut, British Columbia, to the east, which Nova Scotia, and also the what is it? Is Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Some of the transmission coming out here of Quebec. Really an amazing publication. It also gives all the frequency channels of transmit and receive from the Coast Guard on different frequency ranges for emergency or for any communications. It's very, very nice. The publication itself is really big. It's like a 300-page PDF that you can get, but it is truly amazing. I actually went into it because it's a big publication and it's stuff to get the the correct info where it is. So what I did in the messengers, the June utility column, is I extracted out of it every broadcast of medium wave and shortwave for digital and for voice. So most of the digital is Navtex transmissions, plus the voice transmissions with their schedules. and condensed it in a 20-page utility column. So you guys have the direct information in there. But the publication has all of that. Um, Let me just check here if I can share quickly the link. Canadian Coast Guard frequencies. Just see here if I can give you the link directly quickly. Yes, it is. I think here it's so the PDF. Yep. So here's the copy. It's the 2022 edition. I'm going to share the link here for you guys to read it. This is what it looks like, just to show you the cover page of the publication. So this is the cover page of the publication. It's Radio Aids to Marine Navigation 2022, Atlantic, St. Lawrence, Great Lakes, Lake Winnipeg, Arctic, and Pacific. So here is the link for that PDF. But if you're a messenger, if you're a CIDX member, you'll have the straight info on the publications. John Beckham, yeah, I know, but the lowest price here in Canada, because of shipping costs and everything, comes to about $125, which is totally not what I'm going to actually pay for anything. So, Bob, you're in Florida and on vacation. You live in New Jersey. Cool. So, what else do we have? Jason Roberts, nice to have you here. KE8JEY in West Virginia. Jeffrey Crop, nice to have you here from New Hampshire. We have Zen Faros, nice to have you here. Spanish conversation with whistling. First time I have got this again on the same frequency, which means they use the same frequency sometimes. Yeah, they often do. It's like 6925, 6925, and lower sideband. It's like the same. When you listen regularly every night, you notice that you recognize the voices. It's the same people all the time. So usually they park on the frequency and they just use the same one all the time. John Beckham says, good analogy of the Kato KA29 as I thought that it could be a rebranded Reticus V115 or Pernus J401. My sentiments completely. That's simply what it looks like. When I look at the display, the way it shows the text at the beginning, it definitely sounds like, it looks more like the same type of radio, but a different box, buttons placed differently, maybe a few more buttons or a few less buttons, but same radio in the background. Gives Radio Channel, yes, National Yellow Radio Day, and it's true. It's the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. Yes, absolutely. That is something also that we should talk about a little bit here. The different frequencies for listening to the hurricane season. One of the first things you should do is on amateur bands, there's the Hurricane WatchNet. I'm going to actually share the Hurricane WatchNet, which is Hurricane WatchNet. Hurricane. Oops. Hurricane WatchNet amateur radio. So it's hwm.org. This is something to keep for you guys in just in case. Hurricane Watch Net at hwn.org. This is where net activation happens when the weather threatens land. These are amateur radio operators that will have contacts and will talk with people that are stuck in the affected areas. So if a major hurricane or even a smaller hurricane is soon to hit land, tuned to these frequencies. The two frequencies that they use in general is 14325 daytime, upper sideband, 7268 nighttime, lower sideband. Sometimes both for a while are kind of active together. So some interesting stuff there. The other thing that you should brush up on, and that's, I guess, something I should look at a little more. Anything that has to do with any NOAA frequencies, first of all, from the weather, the marine weather broadcasts, to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management, um, that has a lot of HF frequencies actually. So a lot of the U.S. government's main agencies are on HF in all sorts of ways, voice and other modes. It's worth checking all the frequencies also when hurricanes hit. You'll notice that there's nets and there's a lot of traffic on these frequencies. What else do we have? Games Radio Channel, Sanjin ATS 909X2. Yeah, got one too here. Not a big fan of that radio. It's not that it's bad, but if you live in specific environments, just look at my last video about how bad the FM breakthrough into the radio. What's nice though, if you use a an antenna like the MLA30, it might not happen because it's not sensitive to those frequencies, so it might help it in actually not getting overloaded. Chuck, nice to have you here from Newtown, Pennsylvania. Jamil, nice to have you on board from Trinidad and Tobago. Nice to have you here. Gary Pence, nice to have you here from Dallas, KM5X. We have Kong Lives, nice to have you here from Lima, Peru. Rifleman 336, writing an article for my blog about my medium wave preselector preamp from Palstar. Picked it up at the Hanvention. Cool. Gonna be interesting to check out. Yes, and Pharaohs, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the waterfall, what they look like. I'm going to have the audio of what they sound like. And I'll talk about what they are, where they are from. I actually had, and maybe it would be a nice time to have something back like that. I don't remember when I did that column. I would have to go back into the messenger. I did one messenger column about the different radars, where they were located around the planet, what they sounded like, who was operating them. And in the messenger, I had the picture of the waterfall and a link to an audio clip of that radar. So I'm going to do kind of the same thing here. Carol W7WXV. So yeah, I just posted a link for the publication. It's a nice publication to read, though. If you want to learn more about procedures and how everything is working out and how it happens, see the different zones for the marine broadcasts and warnings, and how they operate, what zone in the Canadian oceans and the Great Lakes area and so on they cover. It's a very nice publication that you'll learn a lot about the Canadian Coast Guard itself. But nice to have all the frequencies for the radio also. What else do we have? So nice to have you here, Greg. Bob, info on what messenger is and link for Canadian Coast Guard document. So the document is there. I just posted it. The messenger, so that we have a club in Canada called the Canadian International DX Club. And this is a club that deals with radio. And it's not because it says Canadian in the so the CIDX Club. Let's see. I'm going to share the link here to the web page. So it's not because it says Canadian that it's only for Canadians. It is, first of all, a radio club. Here's the main page of the Canadian International DX Club. There we go. It is a club, so you're part of a club if you join, but it has a monthly publication called The Messenger. And that publication is a publication about many aspects of radio. I'm just going to see here if I can, without breaking my neck. I took the wrong arm now. It hurts. Ugh. Let's see here if I can get something here. I'm going to show you the title, the front page of the May Messenger on my tablet here. So the Messenger is a monthly publication that comes out of the Canadian International DX Club. It deals with several different aspects of radio. There's radio logs, there's all sorts of radio related articles. I have a utility column in there that I every month. And so just going to show you guys what it looks like. So this is the Messenger for May of 2022. So the Messenger is, whoops, I made it disappear. So the Messenger is this publication here, as you see here. So this is the Messenger. This is the May edition. It is usually runs around 65 to 80, 90 pages, depending on the month. To give you an idea of what's in there, there's a broadcast band column. There's a headquarters report, board of directors report. There's a very interesting column by Mickey Delmich about Cuba selling. I have the world of utilities. There's a shortwave logbook. There's a free radio scene about pirate radio. There's Glenn Hauser that has world of radio and some of the DX shows on shortwave listing. Shortwave station resources, schedules, and so on. DX program guide. Not just listening, anything radio, but that is in, say, movies or books or whatever. N2EI, Skip has Uncle Skip's bookshelf. John Figliozzi is potting along. Technical topics, Erica Trull has a ham radio news and news, which is very good. So lots of stuff about radio in general. And it's really inexpensive. It's $10 for a year or $25 for 3 years. It's just a great bargain. And you've got a electronic PDF publication every month about radio. So check it out. If you've never asked, you can ask for a sample copy of it. And you will see by yourself what it looks like. And if you like it, then you can join. So check the web page for all the details about the Canadian International DX Club. And for the free sample, all you have to do is ask for a sample at cidxclub.ca. So sample at cidxclub.ca. And if you've never asked, you can ask for a sample. Sheldon will send you a sample, and you'll be able to check it out and decide for yourself if it's worth it for you to join the club. So, like I said, the publication I shared about the Canadian Coast Guard is very, very complete, but it has a lot of info, including the ones on the frequencies. What I've did is I took all what is broadcasts and I summed it up in the Messenger, so you don't have to go through all the details of the different listings and see what they are. I took the time to really just extract all what is really a broadcast, so like the Navtex broadcasts, the Weather Facts broadcasts, the voice broadcasts of the different stations, and so on. So you'll know their times, their frequencies, and their location around Canada also at the same time. John, WPE4KNC, Virginia, nice to have you here. Zigzag, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? So zigzag, yeah. There's the internet is, and I'll say it all over and over again. The internet is really something about helping out in the hobby. We have so much resource in the hub from the internet. It's great. Zen Pharaoh says TAH Istanbul. Tom, nice to have you here from Monclova, Ohio. Let me go back here. We have Mike WX50. Nice to have you on board from a newly retired school tech guy. So last day of work was today. Well, now you'll have time for radio, man. You'll have time for radio. Corbett DC. Nice to have you on board from the Florida Gulf Coast. What else do we have? Carol, any amateur radio operators that want to participate in nets with FEMA, Mars, the 60-meter channel 1 and 2 are the ones to use. And they often have kind of interaction. They often have these moments, these nets that are part, amateur radio and Mars on. So it's like a duplex. So the Mars net's on one frequency, but the amateurs talk on another. Also, there's a lot of that happening. Joseph, nice to have you on board from San Francisco Bay Area. Toast and love, interesting. I'm listening to Hulk Smash Kiwi SDR from Dayton, Ohio tonight. No WWV5, 10 weak, 15 strong, 20 weak, 25 very weak. Warp Hammer, nice to have you on board. I have a RF Pro 1B loop on my Kiwi SDR, and it benefited from a 30 megahertz low pass on the antenna to ham segment. I suspect was FM broadcast noise. Yeah, that's totally possible, especially if you're not too far from FM broadcasters or you got some really strong one near you. This is one of the major problems here. I can tell you here, if a radio withstands the FM breakthrough, it's a really good radio. What else do we have? You always need an antenna for an SDR. It's a radio. Remember that as SDR, a software-defined receiver, is a radio. It's just that it's controlled by the computer. This is something that a lot of people have a hard time understanding an SDR. So an SDR, like what I have here running right now, which you see right there, this is a AirSpy HF Plus that you see there behind the microphone, and that is a radio. It's a radio. The difference with an SDR is simple. An SDR, think about an SDR as a radio, but they don't have controls. The only way to control them is with a computer. So that's why the computer is there. It has the missing controls. And the software, because of the way that it processes everything, makes the SDRs often amazing because they give you amazing possibilities that are impossible on many standard analog radios. So this is really, really cool. And you need an antenna because it's a radio. So my SDR as an antenna, it's the MLA30 that's plugged on it actually right now. And I've got the SDR Play RSPDX also that does it. John Beckham, I guess that it is roast the Prunus J401 night, but the volume control on the shortwave bands has an oscillated sound appear as you adjust the volume. This radio lacks proper grounding shielding. These radios, the V115, the Prunus J401, what is the problem is they are suffering from huge internal noise interference. Definitely. It's really, really crazy. If they would be shielded better, they might actually be better radios. because they receive, but it's washed out in noise, and the noise is actually made by the radio itself, the circuitry. Games Radio channel not going to be part of the show because I will be in my campground and my internet will break there. So no problem, my friend. No problem. SVO 8424 showed up. Wasn't there earlier. SVO Greece. John Bacon. Some people like yellow radios and yellow race cars. Yeah, of course. What else do we have? Johnny Sorrentino. Nice to have you on board from New York City. John Beckham. Who remembers the yellow Dodge neon? Oh, man. That was visible. It's like every time you see I got some, just gonna check out here. I think it's a hair, or if it's a cat hair or just one of my hairs, but it's like when you're, in the standard, on the street, or even in a parking lot, and you've got that one yellow car. It's like it just stands out among all the other very, dark blue, black, or whatever gray cars there are that are all same colors. Francis Moore, nice to have you on board from the UK. Storms, radios, and cats. Ice cold Arizona green tea. Cool. Cool. Bob Raymond just joined the Canadian International DX Club. Welcome aboard. It's a great little club. It's a great club, and it's a great publication. We have a monthly, if you want to join in, we have a monthly Zoom meeting where all CIDX members can join in, and we chat about radio, talk about different subjects about radio. So welcome aboard. Andy New, nice to have you here from the UK, M7CUN. What else do we have? The PBRS DJ, nice to have you here from the rainy northern Vermont Green Mountains. Here it was supposed to rain, and we just kind of really didn't have anything today. It was just very gray, but no rain. No rain. Charles Williams, your cat is used taking up most of the chair. That's a cat for you. Chris, G7VEO, nice to have you here from across the pond. What else do we have? Yeah, it's 15 seconds. It's very short. It's very short. So, what else do we have? So we're at the bottom of the chat. Hey there, Matt, MDK2 from Denver, Colorado. Nice to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit about the different things that we can hear on shortwave. And so it's kind of a two-part question we have from Giuseppe in Italy here. He asked about the different signals and also asked about the different frequency ranges up to the higher frequencies. One of the common things that I hear and I see all the time about radio is people telling me, well, above 20 megahertz, I don't hear anything. Is there anything there? And the question was particularly there a lot with low solar activity because the maximum usable frequency wasn't very high when the solar activity was low. But now that we have solar activity that is much higher and rising, we start hearing a lot more stuff in the higher frequencies. So definitely there are things to listen to on the higher frequencies, but with higher solar activity now's the time to really, tune around and see what's there for sure. So first of all, of course, one of the things we all know, international broadcasts. There's still quite a lot of them. A lot of people are in the impression, and I still hear that all the time. People saying, "Oh, the BBC isn't on shortwave anymore." It's sad. It is. And a lot of broadcasters that people think are gone are actually still there. You can still listen to, Vatican Radio and Radio France and the BBC World Service, the Voice of America. The problem in the Americas, particularly, because it's really in the Americas where this shows, is the lack of broadcast targeted towards the Americas. So the BBC will broadcast, but will broadcast to Africa, to the Middle East, to Asia. So we're not targeted anymore. So which means the signals are weaker. Add to that the fact that, unfortunately, the noise levels have increased so much around us that what happens is that the weaker signals are washed down. If anybody watched my walk in the park video this week, I had two little ETM scans, two quick ETM scans while going to get some groceries. And notice how, for example, the BBC 15400 wasn't that bad. It was actually listenable at a really, really, really good level. You could hear and listen to the program. But that same broadcast, if I come home, I can't hear it here because the noise floor is too high. So this is what makes and gives an impression of bands that are dead. So I'll get people that are going to come over and say, I don't hear anything. And the reason you don't hear anything isn't because there's nothing there. It's because your noise floor just washes it out. And because the noise floor washes it out, what happens is that it gives the impression that there's nothing on the bands. And unfortunately, unless you have something here like this, or something that you know where to look on the internet that talks about radio, what happens is that you don't know what happens. I would wonder, and I look at the comments. One of the things I did the other day, I went on Amazon. And on Amazon, of course, you have the user comments of everything people buy. And one of the things I decided to look at is how many people buy a radio. And I chose only radios that I know are good enough to receive broadcasts. And they're sensitive enough and they work good. I took out the comments of the people that you see they know what they're doing and that were happy with it or so on. Then I took out the comments of people that are just too ignorant to understand what they are doing and what they have. And I kept kind of the standard, more of it, the standard comment of, the standard comment of, sorry guys, I'm just going to do a little something here. This is okay. Signal. There we go. So what happened is I looked at what is the standard, the standard people that seem to kind of understand a little bit what they have, but looked at the comments they had. And what the problem happens is that those comments, a lot of them is, well, it seems like shortwave's dead. Even for example, like people that were listening to shortwave back in the day, that definitely know what could be there if there's stuff to listen to. But they come back and they realize they comment, well, don't bother buying a radio. There's nothing. I heard nothing. Or one of the comments I've seen a lot is, there's only religious stuff, not worth buying a radio. And I totally understand how, how that comment can be. Because one of the biggest problems is that the noise around them, they just don't realize how it is so high. When you have a radio and you hear static, it's normal. You're in the mode where static is normal because every radio, even in low noise, has static. But people don't realize that today's static is worse and stronger and the big enemy of the radio in general. So people will return them because they say they don't hear anything. And it's sad because the noise is the problem. And it depends where you want to listen to and how dedicated we're going to call it like that. How dedicated are you to the hobby at the same time? So this is the big problem when getting a radio. So yeah, there are still a lot of broadcasters that you can listen to. It's just a lot of them are just below that noise floor because you've got too much noise where you live. So it gives the impression there's nothing, but in reality, there's a lot more. In reality, there's really a lot more. Just gonna go down quickly a little bit. Mike WX50, thank you so much for the tip, much appreciated. John Beckham says, I have to say from where I live in Northeast Florida, Radio Marti, one of the loudest stations. Pick up on 7335. Yeah, because it's sent to what happens, it's sent to Cuba. So what happens when it's sent to Cuba, it means, you're so close to Cuba. So you're almost in the target zone of Radio Marti, which broadcasts from Greenfield, North Carolina, by the way. So, what else do we have? What else do we have? Let me just go down here. Yeah, bots are everywhere now. Carol W7WXV, been working with a friend on noise issues. He does not appear to have much interference, but his overall noise floor is high with low signals. The problem is the washout of the noise level. So he says, we'll be installing a noise canceller, and leering to use is noise blanker and as well. The problem is that you don't appear to have much interference, but it's the general noise is just like kind of it's like light pollution for astronomy. The light pollution in astronomy is the visible way of you can visualize radio noise around us. Live in a big city, see how bright the sky is at night and how few stars you see. The stars are still there. It's just that the overall brightness of the sky blocks the faintest ones. It's exactly like that, but radio wise. And what's said is, in some cases, the noise we have, we can deal with it in some way. We can find a place where maybe it's lower because it you know where it comes from. It's localized to your home or the neighbor. But there are cases, and here is one of those cases where I live, where you're in the front and the back, next door. It's just a white noise that washes out everything that comes from. You're not really sure where it comes from, actually. And that, unfortunately, you got to deal with it, and it's really tough. It's really tough dealing with that because there's not much you can do. I need to put up my my noise reduction box here that I have, the noise canceller here, and test it out a little more. I did test it a little. It seemed to have some effect, but it wasn't really well positioned. I need to position it in a way that it's going to really have a better effect. And try it again with my radios. I'm going to try it with my Kenwood or my ICOM so I can actually see on the S meter, actually. David's Radio Room, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board from Central Georgia. Metalunar. I say, have you here for many younger people? Their only experience with shortwave is a cheap emergency radio gifted to them with a very compressed dial and short antenna. You try it once, can't catch anything and give up. That is also something bad. You know, when you don't know about a hobby or something, you don't want to, very often, um, you don't want to have something expensive. You're starting out and you're like, well, I wonder if that $50 radio is okay, and they buy something, but in reality they bought a crappy one. And yeah, of course, that means they're going to have a crappy experience on the first try, and that ain't going to work. That we can even deal with long time ago. Imagine inexperienced people buying a shortwave radio in the 80s, for example. The noise was low, but if you didn't know where to tune and what to do, you might find that, I don't understand anything and I don't know what I'm doing actually and what's there, and it doesn't seem to be that great. I still remember when I went to Radio Shack. I guess the Radio Shack, maybe 1991 ish, 1990, 91. I was at the Radio Shack store. A guy had purchased a Grundig, maybe a little later, but it was a Grundig Yacht Boy 400, which was a decent portable at the time. It really was a decent portable. And basically, what happens is that the guy was returning the radio saying, well, I don't hear anything. And I kind of budged in the conversation, and I said, well, I've been doing this hobby for many years now, and there's a lot to listen to. You just have to learn where and when. And I even pointed, because they had the Passport to World Band Radio and in the store back then. And I kind of pointed at the guy saying, well, that book's going to help you out a lot. It's just that he didn't know where to listen and what time to listen. And didn't know that maybe putting a little wire outdoors would help and stuff like that. And I actually offered the guy to go over and help him with that. And I'm going to say, look, I'm going to show you how you actually can listen to a lot of stuff. But I never heard from him again, even though I gave him my phone number. And, I would guess what ended up happening is he just asked for a refund. And he thought the radio just didn't work, So DJ Farlow, nice to have you here. Carbid DC has satellite pollution. Yep. Joseph says it's all in the same overall spectrum, so light pollution and radio noise pollution is sort of all the same. Yep. John Meckham, I would have to say that both the Radio Wow and Exchange Data, Ceodon, and Texan brands offer the most sensitive and selective portable shortwave radios on the market today. Definitely. And it's definitely, and I said, it's never been so inexpensive to have a good setup. It's never been so inexpensive to get a good radio. It's never been so inexpensive to have something that helps out in the noise, like an MLA30. You can get into the hobby for a low price that has equipment that you'll own that is far better than much more expensive radios of the 70s and the 80s. It's crazy. When I think about the Texan PL330, that little thing is amazing. For the price, it's so amazing. Kong lives. I get Radio Marti in Lima, Peru pretty clearly on the Texan R909 and a 3-meter length of wire. Carbon DC, what about Earth's magnetic field or lack of it? Well, there's no lack of magnetic field. It is in the last 100 years, it has slightly diminished, but very, very, very slightly. And we still have a strong magnetic field. And the magnetic field of the Earth, when it's quiet, when it's quiet, it actually, doesn't impact much on the radio. It's really when there's an interaction with the sun and we get these geomagnetic storm that, yeah, that will impact our listening for sure. TVDXer, salut. J'espère que ça va bien. Pas de problème pour le retard, mais tu vas être en punition. Nice to have you here, TVDXer. So, yeah, well, that's what I did the first time, but it wasn't positioned near my main antenna. I want to try something with that for sure. We have Jay Kearns listening from Southwest Florida. Nice to have you here. Nice to have you here. Anish Manhar. Simple question. Can anyone help, Jill? Is different countries allocated to shortwave frequencies? The shortwave allocation is for the world, and it's done by the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union. And what they do is they allocate frequency ranges for different broad types of broadcasts, if you want. So that's how the international broadcast bands are allocated. That's how aeronautical frequency ranges are decided. Marine ranges are decided. Where the CB band is, where whatever is, it's all decided by these international regulations. So specific countries don't have necessarily specific frequencies. What they just do is follow the ITU's general frequency kind of frequency chart, if you want, depending on what they broadcast. So every country will broadcast whatever they have to broadcast on a specific range of frequency, which is the same with a few changes. There are a few little things that will change from one region to the other, because the world is divided into different regions. So, for example, North America is region 2, Europe is region 1, and so on. In these regions, there will be subtle differences in different bands, but overall, the majority of what you will hear is the same, whatever country you're broadcasting from. They are simply allocated, and any country uses those frequencies. Then there's another thing that happens, and that's something that some countries don't follow. And those countries that don't follow, it often shows because they will often interfere with others. Every year, the HFCC, the High Frequency Coordination Committee, will actually receive international broadcast frequency schedules from different stations. So they'll submit those frequencies, and they will actually be able to check if that frequency is already allocated to another station at the same time for the same time from the same zone for the same target area. So to avoid interference, by checking it out, they'll be able to, fix the frequencies so that nobody talks on the same channel all the time. If 2-3 stations on the same frequency, won't work. A couple of countries don't follow that. A couple of countries do not, and they are Cuba. Cuba does not abide by that rule. There's, North Korea does not abide by that rule. To some extent, China also does not abide by that rule. And what happens is that these stations will decide that they will choose whatever frequency they want, and an impact will happen from time to time when one station broadcasts on another station's frequency. One example, we have a clash right now with China Radio International via Cuba on 6180 that often interferes with Brazil, Radio Nacional Amazona. You will have one year I was really mad, and I actually wrote to Radio Havana, Cuba. One year I was listening to Radio All India Radio on 11670, It was one of the main frequencies coming in really well to North America, and I was happy. I was hearing India in English every day. And Cuba decided that they put Spanish transmission on the same frequency, 11670, because they just didn't care. I was so mad. I actually wrote a letter ranting at Radio Havana, Cuba, that they were using a frequency that India was in, and I was really mad. I actually even told them, I said, I loved listening to Radio Havana, Cuba, but now maybe I'm rethinking if I want to still listen to your station for being so careless about using frequencies without even knowing if somebody's there at the time that you broadcast and so on. That one made me real mad. And I remember Glenn Hauser on his World of Radio show ranting at Cuba about a couple of frequencies that would clash. It was crazy. Dusting off, lots of lightning coming from a line of storms tonight from Texas through Pennsylvania. Skip, nice to have you here. And 2EI from New Jersey. John Beckham, Radio Shack was the best place in the world to shop when it was around. I miss Radio Shack and all of its nostalgic brands indeed. Yeah, same here. We still have the Source here, which kind of has a basic feel of what Radio Shack was, but without the gadgets and all the cool stuff to look at. Not interesting. My WX50, I bought a Seagrain Skywave at my local Radio Shack. Also bought a first receiver there in 79, DX Realistic DX160, which was that Realistic DX160 was one of the main, very important starter radios for a lot of people back in the 70s. Man. Don Royal, bring back the 70s and 80s. Jay Kearns, did you say MLA30? Yep. You should pay. Anybody buying an MLA30, which is a loop, an amplified magnetic loop, should pay around $40. Don't pay much more than $45. If you see one at $100, it's no, that you're paying way too much. Another antenna people seem to be having a lot of success with is the U-loop, which is a non-amplified antenna. It's a loop also, but that one is a passive loop. Division 17, nice to have you here from Montreal. DJ Follow, noise floor here can be bad. Surprises me that I can get a radio in New Zealand on 15720 occasionally in the evening at this time of year. Pirate Radio playing music on 6935. Let's go check that out. I'm listening to the Trenton Military right now on the 6754. Oops. 6935. Yep. $69.35. There is a pirate. It's not very strong, but it's there. It's definitely there here. And let me check something here. Yeah. Actually getting better. It's almost S9 plus 10 now. So definitely 6935 upper sideband. There is a pirate. Definitely a pirate station there. Bruce Corbett, 9N9BH. What else do we have? Bob, my Time Wave ANC4 noise canceller eliminated plasma TV noise from my neighbor. The trick is experimenting with various noise sense antennas. Any ground wave signals may also be canceled. Going Royal, there's a lot more radio brands in the 80s, but a lot were very ordinary. We in the 80s, we paid high amounts of money for very ordinary radios. That was the thing. I look at my Panasonic RFB 300. If you guys have seen my videos, it shows you how it's just so, you know, um, not a great radio. And that thing was a couple of $100 in the 80s, which is, like $400 or $500 today. And for less than 100 today, you got something that is a million times better than the radio. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, there's the Radio Shack catalog website, which is always kind of nice to watch. Cool, Adesh, and don't hesitate to ask questions. It's nice. It's nice to have questions to answer. Yogi, nice to have you on board. John Beckham, Radio Shack made some beautiful AM FM stereo receivers and real wooden cabinets, as they were quite nice indeed. The logo was, of course, realistic. Realistic was most realistic stuff were relatively decent in performance and in quality. Calling Lives, thank you so much for the tip. I'm happy to share my knowledge with everybody. Just going to check something here. We have it here. Sorry if I take a few seconds, but I actually take the time to signal and report, because that helps in the spam also. Run see, City, nice to have you on board. And says radios rock, absolutely. RJ Dakota, 6935 is good. Loud and clear. Yogi, to be honest, some stations just don't care when they code channel interference. 11815, CGTN China, English and NHK are on it. Yeah, it's like I said. There's a couple of there's two things that happen with interference on different channels. One is the fact that some countries like China don't care much. One is that sometimes it's not intentional that the interference is there. And an example is that a station might broadcast to Europe on a frequency, and then another station will broadcast on that frequency, but to North America. And they kind of think that, they won't interfere with each other because they're not the same target area and it's not the same time. But sometimes propagation plays weird tricks. And what happens is that both signals suddenly are heard at either one location or both locations and interfere with each other. And it will happen sometimes that it's not necessarily because they intentionally want to, but frequency chosen happens to just do that at that time. Sometimes it's a once in a time thing. An example of that, was it last year? There was Voice of Turkey broadcasting in Turkish to the Middle East for several hours, from like 0 to 06 UTC or something. It was like a 6-hour broadcast in Turkish. So that was not meant for us here. It was meant for the Middle East. And Radio Havana, Cuba, which is on 6,000 kilohertz also, was sometimes overpowered by Turkey. And it was not intentional. It's just that when propagation was good, Turkey was coming in and sometimes was even more powerful than what Cuba was doing on 6,000. So sometimes it's not, intentional. Sometimes it is. China has a lot of frequencies that are intentionally blocking others. But Bruce Cobert, N9BH. People just can't imagine the big old receivers I used back in the 68, 69 main dial, fine dial calibration hardly meant anything. Yeah, all of these big radios. John Meckham, can you briefly describe why a DSP shortwave portable is better than analog? It's not necessarily better. Better is not a word. It's different. And it's not necessarily going to be better. Um, most of if it's well done, it could be better. If it's not well done, it could be worse. And it comes at a cost very often. So today, a lot of the portables we buy are DSP based, and what that means is that it's simply that the chip. So there's a very popular chip being used in radios today, which is the silicon integrated 47. They have several versions: 47, 34, 35, 36, which are variations of the same chip. It's a radio on a chip. Just that little chip is a full radio, and it will actually receive medium wave, FM, shortwave, and how it performs will depend on what they did with it and what circuit they actually build around it. Some of the cheapest ones, they have such almost no circuit around it. So the radio will perform just basically with its own chip. Not necessarily always good. But the more expensive ones will add circuitry to actually deal with the chip, help it actually make give a better performance. DSP, digital signal processing. Why it can be better compared to an analog standard PLL receiver is if you use it well, you can process. That's DSP. That's the DSP part. You can process that signal to enhance it better. You can process that signal in ways that a analog receiver would need a lot more circuitry to do the same thing. So a DSP radio is not better necessarily. It's different, and it brings a lot of options that, like I said, look at a radio from the 80s, a portable radio from the 80s. Most of them, what did they have in filters? Often you had what was called wide narrow. Most radios, they just dealt with, filters like that. It's wide or it's narrow. Wide, you're listening to a broadcast, don't have interference or stations too close by. It's, better sound audio quality and fidelity. But when we were squeezed in with many stations close, you had to put the filter to narrow to, narrow down the amount of the signal you're going to listen to avoid interference. But you had only two choices most of the time. If you were lucky, you had three. And the real choice of filters and better filters back in the day were the desktops. The desktops had optional filters, like the Kenwood 5000 I got here. You had optional filters to add. You could have up to 4 filters. And if you chose the filters, the good quality filters, the filtering would be good, and you could avoid a lot of the interference around it. But adding filters in an old radio meant adding additional electronic circuitry. So 4 filters meant 4 little circuit boards with parts to actually have that filter work. DSP chips like the silicon integrateds add a different processing of the signal that now lets you use filters in the signal processing, which means now you have, if you want, on that chip, you would have 10 filters if they decide to put 10 filters. The filters are selectable by the manufacturer. The manufacturer decides what are going to be the size of the filter by the firmware and by the way that the radio is designed. So that's why a radio today, like, if you look at the PL900 here, you will have several filters. If I take it out, we're just gonna take this here. I'm just gonna show you guys. So a radio like this has, of course, the bandwidth filters. So the bandwidth filters are here. So I'm just gonna. So for example, I'm in SSB. If I press the filter button, this is a 4 kilohertz. Then you got 3 kilohertz. Then you got 2.3 kilohertz, 1.5 kilohertz, 0.5 kilohertz. This is very cool because it's something that you couldn't have so many filters in the old radios in the day. So just going to go here. So this is where DSP actually, when it's well done, makes these radios better, because all of that is done with these DSP chips. So it adds capabilities that would have been impossible to do 20, 30 years ago. There's a slow scan TV signal on 6935 that was just being sent, by the way. So these are options that clearly help us in making these radios great. So it's not that DSP radios are better. DSP and analog portables are both good, but if it's well done, the DSP adds features that you won't have on the standard analog PLL receiver, and that's mostly how it could be better portable. Now, there are drawbacks when it's not done well of different things. For example, a lot of DSP-based receiver are muting when you tune. There's this little delay that is very annoying if you like using the tuning knob. But there are radios that avoid that by using the DSP chip in another way. And the Texan PL 990, H501, these are examples of using that chip in a layer, but it's not the main driver of the radio. The radio still is a PLL tuning radio, but adds the DSP capabilities to it. So it enhances, it uses the great features, but the tuning knob doesn't mute because it's still a PLL, a phase lock loop based radio. So that's pretty much what I say here. So a DSP shortwave is not necessarily better, but it could be better thanks to the DSP chips giving all of these functionalities that would have cost and would have been almost impossible with the amount of filtering that you had to have and the amount of electronics you had to have. Another example of the advancements of electronics and radio and in everything. Why is a radio so big in the 80s? It's not because they wanted to make big radios necessarily. It's because if you look at the circuit board, you needed circuits, you needed transistors and capacitors and resistors and diodes for every single thing that you're going to add as a feature in the radio. So the more the radio is good performance, the more chips it had, the more parts it had, the bigger the circuit board, and you had to put it in a radio, so you had to put the big case to put all of that circuit board within it. A lot of the 80s radios, if you open them, it's a huge circuit board with a lot of parts in them. But as time went by, more and more chips, more and more integrated circuits could do part of what was done only with transistors back in the day. So an example of why radios today could be very small, just take as an example that silicon integrated chip. Radio on a chip. It's like super small. But it is, in the 80s, that same chip, it would have been a circuit board, a huge circuit board, to have all of the parts. And this is the advancements of electronics, being able to miniaturize so many of the components and chips, and you end up with radios that are very small, but in the amount of parts, and if you would expand all of the chips in it, you would have a lot more parts that radios had in the 80s. Things, you have a small radio, everything's small. That's why we have portable computers today. Why do we have such small computers? I mean, you have a computer in your smartphone that is a gazillion times more powerful than a Commodore 64 from the 80s. And yet, look how small it is. Well, advancements in chips, how many transistors, how many things we can now squeeze in a chip to do the same thing that we needed huge circuit boards, because we needed to have, a gazillion transistors back in the day. Bruce Corbett, if stations did not play their tube before starting program broadcast, it was hard to find them. Yes, back in the day, if they didn't have, now man, on that, how many times that interval signal helped me find a station on that old realistic DX100? Lord Kitchener, nice to have you here. Going to try out a PL990. Cool. Uncle Justin, KB2RMC in Western New York State. Nice to have you here. Joseph, picking up audible but weak music on 6935 USB in the California coast. Good. Yep, it's going to be a great radio, Lord Kitchener. Absolutely. Mark says 6935, good signal in southeast Wisconsin. Skip and 2EI, hearing the pirate on 6935 upper sideband. Playing Steely Dan at the time that he posted the info in New Jersey. Yogi, by the way, I bought an SDR player SPDX last week, and I am still blown away by how well it performs. Installed this SDR Uno and the 11-year-old laptop, and it is fun. It's amazing. It's amazing little radios. These SDRs are great. Trying to go down. A little faster. Dawson Loaf, hearing 6935 in Ohio. Bruce Cobert had some old, at the time, Olive Crafters. Don't remember the model. Eventually, I had Olive Crafters SX130. That was a big improvement, but still the dial was just an approximation of frequency. When we got, what was the thing we wanted? What was the thing we all wanted back in the day? Very, very simple. We all wanted to have a radio with frequency display, because all the radios with the dial, darn, it was so difficult. A Rush Time Machine. Any suggestion to fix a Seward on D808 scratchy volume wheel? One of those. What do you guys use to clean knobs on the or scratchy volume pots on a radio? It's really a question of using just a small amount of the proper fluid, and it will come back like new. Log 2112, nice to have you here. Bob, WA2SQQ still uses Amerlon HQ180, purchased in 66. Cool. Lagardie had a Lafayette KT340 shortwave, built from a kit in 1967 with tubes. I gotta say, there's one thing about building your own radio, and it's the fact of the satisfaction of building something with your hands, completing it, taking hours to build it, turning it on, and it works, and it's just fascinating. I think it's even more fascinating when you built it than when you just purchased it all built up. Jay Kearns is learning CW at 20 words per minute. Cool. So, yep, as Skip was saying, I was hearing the slow scan TV signal a little earlier. So, put your software up and running. I'm going to try here. I'm going to put MM. I think I have SSTV here. Yep, got it here. We're going to see if it actually plays some SSTV. Let me just receive. Just going to check options, sound card, input levels and sound card. You want the stereo mix is disabled. Okay. Let's put stereo mix on this. Okay. Take care, Bruce Corbett and 9BH73. Brian Vandenheimer says, I feel like you could spend a whole live chat on filters. I love experimenting with notch filters too. Dr. Sisop, nice to have you on board from London, UK. Yeah, CHU is back now. I heard it this week on the ETM scan. Happy to try to explain as best as I can. Bob D, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Jason Roberts, have you ever received any of the HF beacons located worldwide on 14100? They're operated by hams, coordinated by the NCDX Foundation. Yep, many times. Sometime what I do is I put one of the radios on 14100, and there's the app that you can install on your phone, by the way, for those that wonder. So on 14100, there's something that is worldwide beacons. And here we go. And you have an app that you can install on your phone. It tells you, depending on the frequency you're using, which beacon is transmitting. So this one is for, you see on the top left, it says 20 meters, 14100. And you could see the one that you can see where it is on the list as it moves. Like right now, it's transmitting the one in Africa. So you're going to see that that's going to move. And there you go, 4X in Israel and so on. So it tells you which one is transmitting. These are on several frequencies, by the way. 14100, 18110, 21150, 24930, and 28210 meter band. They are for the purpose of worldwide propagation conditions. Know what they are and what countries you might be hearing. And what they do is they start at full power, which I think is 100 watts, and then they will transmit quickly at like 10 watts, 10 watts, 1 watts, 100 milliwatts, and so on, to kind of test the propagation and see how it works. But it's just great to try listen to that. John Beckham. So DSP radio has less parts for the most part, generally speaking. Thanks for the very thorough explanation. More functionalities with less features needed. Radio and a chip. Yeah, but because it's a little more complex than that. But it's, in the case of the portable radios today, you can consider that it's the DSP radios are mostly using a chip that has everything on the chip. So yeah, they'll have less parts because they have just one chip doing a lot. They have technically more parts because that chip actually has a lot more parts in it, but it's so miniaturized that it's super small. So that's why you don't necessarily that's why these radios today are so small. But like I said, don't consider that they are necessarily better. It depends on how well they are made most of the time. So what else do we have? Well, I don't agree with that, Dr. Sisop. I'm going to tell you that a lot of the radios today are 100 times better built than a lot of the radios that we have today. We have are better built than those radios from the past. I don't honestly, I don't consider the good Chinese stuff as junk. It's not more junk. It's actually vastly superior to whatever we had in the past. There are advancements in Chinese. When people talk about Chinese junk, I always reply back, it's junk if you just don't want to pay the price. Like you can have US junk. If you want to buy crappy US stuff, there's a lot of it available. Like there's a lot available of Canada, manufactured junk. And no, China does not produce things that are junk compared to the past. Their manufacturing capability is far better than most of what we have available here today. So junk is the price you pay for it. Why do people consider something junk? Yeah, they don't want to pay for it. So they paid the cheapest price for it. Then you wonder why it's junk. But get yourself a good radio, and I gotta tell you, that thing isn't junk. That thing is actually better manufactured than most of the stuff in the past. How many times did you buy something in the 80s that you had to return because it wasn't working well? How many times does that happen today? Manufacturing has advanced to really new levels today, and it's very rare that you will have something that doesn't work when it's in the box. But like I say, junk is because people don't want to pay the price. So I'm going to tell you one thing: a Texan PL990 is a million times better in what it is than any of the 80s radios that I used. And that's not junk, and it's really high quality manufacturing. I can tell you that. So when somebody says that, it's like, nope. We got to stop. We got to stop bashing China for things like that, because every country makes crap. It always is and always was. How much you want to pay for something? You know, how much you want to pay for something? It just goes down to that. If you buy the cheapest stuff, you will have junk wherever you buy it, wherever it's manufactured. If China was so junky, we wouldn't have, most of the manufacturers wouldn't make stuff there. Why do you think your laptops and your desktops and all the PCs we use and the TVs we use are almost all made there? If they were so junky and so cheap crap, we wouldn't be happy with our stuff. I can tell you, we are really happy with our electronics and our stuff, and it's very well built. Once again, it has to do with price paid, how much you want to pay for it. That's the impressions of junk comes a lot from the idea of junk comes from the fact that you don't want to pay. I look at that thing. It's made in China. It's junk. Yeah, you bought it at a dollar store. What do you expect to have for $4 or $3? And you're going to tell me it's junk? You paid $3 for something that you should have paid maybe 25. And you're going to tell me, oh, look at the Chinese crap. I'm sorry. It's not like that. It's because you didn't want to pay for it. That's all. What else do we have? Paul Miller. Killing 110, Apollo 13 was powered by a computer less powerful than a modern day basic calculator. Oh, yeah. Those were really, really low. Well, that's for sure. It's not just the radios. Today's electronics is not made to be fixed. And that is because, more miniature and all the things that are done today are just almost impossible to repair. When I was fixing computers, I could see it coming. I could easily fix a laptop in 2000, 2005, and 2010. They were really easy to service and change hard drives. And what do you have today? You don't have laptops today that have these little doors for each component. You now have to open the whole thing to change, and sometimes it's not even possible depending on the machine. Sometimes it's super complicated. So it depends on. But today everything is made to be sent to the trash when it's over. Dr. Sysop, 6935, nothing. Tosanov hearing some of the DX beacons on 14100. Mike WX50, love the analog dial on the realistic DX160, but digital readout on the Kenwood R1000 definitely made things better. Oh, yeah. When I had my Radio Shack DX302, oh boy, was I so happy to have a display that tells me where I'm tuned to. John Beckham, as a young boy, I was thrilled to build my first crystal radio set. Bonsoir TVDXer, fais attention à toi. CHU is back, I believe, on all of its frequencies. 3330, 7850, and 14670, from what I've seen. Greg listens to SDR on YouTube. What else we have? Jason Roberts, thanks, Jill, for telling us about a worldwide beacon app. I haven't had any luck receiving those yet, but I'll keep at it. Yeah, if you guys want to receive the beacons, okay, just a little trick here. Because the frequency they are on is CW, so it's a Morse code identification followed by tones of different strength. The beacons last, what, is it 10 seconds? ID, tone, and every 10 seconds it switches to a new one. So it's something like that. It's 10 or 20 seconds. I'm just trying to remember if it's 10 or 20. But anyways, I think it's 10. So Morse code ID, tone. Then it'll switch to the next station. Having your phone very accurately very accurate on a clock is very important, because with a cycle that's so small, if you're 7 or 8 seconds off, the beacon that you see on the screen and what you hear might actually be different. If you have a radio that is capable of CW, then put it on CW. If it's not, then go and just tune a kilohertz off, like 14099 upper sideband, or 14101 lower sideband. If you don't have upper or lower sideband, just simply tune 14100 and play with the BFO knob to at least have a tone. I'm going to try it here. I'm going to go on 14100. 14100. Put myself in CW. I'm going to see if I hear something. Usually we hear at least a couple, depending on propagation conditions. So 14100. And let me check the app here. It's also a great way to brush up on learning a little bit of Morse code, because you're getting the ID. So NDX. You're gonna see. So right now it's the Australia one. I'm gonna see if we hear something here. Just heard a tone that doesn't have usually. So it's always a Morse code ID at first. The identification of the station will be there. So right now we're in Russia. Let's see what we're gonna hear. Yep, the amount of money, of course, depending on how much you want to pay, for sure. So let me go down here a little bit. Log 2112, you ever do one of those radio kits from Radio Shack? Yes, definitely. Definitely. I did some with the little ones with the springs, the crystal radio, the AM radio. I even had, oh, just heard Morse code. Check if. Trying to see here if I hear anything. Oh, I'm in the wrong frequency here. Sorry. Oops. My bad. So, anyways, 14. Check the app, check the frequencies for the beacons, and just leave your radio on that frequency. You're gonna hear some stuff, definitely. I did. There was one that was actually an AM radio, which was a small portable AM radio that you really built with the circuit board and everything, and that I had at Christmas. Boy, was so happy to build that thing and have it working. Matt MDK2, terrible junk used to be made in USA when manufacturing took place here. It's the cheap consumer who's ultimately the reason for its existence. Yep, don't want to pay. Same thing for why things are made somewhere else. It goes with the price we're ready to pay for stuff we buy. You know, a Texan PL990 made in the United States would cost $800 rather than cost $298. Victor Sissop, you got a point to that. Radio Shack, I remember returning a lot. And back then, they made them in Vietnam or Taiwan. Yep. John Beckham, quite frankly, in general, the Chinese manufacture good quality radios. That is usually the various stereotypes out there that Chinese goods are cheap. Not true. Take care, Paul. Always nice to have you on board, my friend. Jake Kearns, stay safe. Jason Roberts, you're right. The PL 990 is just simply a very good radio. You know, all it has to do. Like if I look at the radios, just look at the radios I've got here. It's very simple. How many radios I've got that are junk? And I mean, usually they're the ones that are the cheapest priced, and they're a piece of junk. And it's not because it's made in China; it's because it's low priced. Even China has a limit to what it can do when you really go down in the price. But it also shows some really, really nice to see how, because of the low cost of manufacturing, basically because they don't pay people well in China, we get stuff for a low price. There's so much we could talk about. The consumer that we are, we want to have the best for the lowest price possible, and that pushes manufacturers in trying to do what can they do. You either go to another country to build it because it costs less, and or you just try to put cheaper parts in it, which also means that in return it might not last as long or be as good. One of the great questions that I've had here in the past is, do you think the radios made today, like the Texan PL990X, do you think they're going to stand the test of time? Meaning, Will these radios still? Will these radios still? Um, work in 30 years from now? Um, I think they will. Honestly, I think they will. Personally, and that is something that is going to be something that we got to look at. The quality of what's made today, will it still be there in 50 years? One of the things that is the fact that um, every electronics has one flaws, and one of the major problems has always been, and I think still today, capacitors. Now, are good capacitors today capable of running longer for a longer period of time than the ones that were built in the 70s or the 80s? There's a lot of stuff like that. All electronics will eventually go bad, but the quality of how they've been built will change. Francis Moore. And these these companies that, or these places like Walmart, Target, and so on. The reason they're selling us the lower price stuff is because people don't want to pay. I remember when I was doing my tech duties, how many times I was with my Toshiba laptop. And I had paid about $1,000 for it. And how many times did my clients tell me, "Wow, your laptop goes so fast compared to my computer"? And you look at them and it's like, yeah, well, in my head, it's like, yeah, but I paid $1,000 for mine. You paid 399 for yours. Can't expect the same performance. So, John Beckham, I'm under the impression that when these radios are built, you almost have to have surgeon's fingers to build on the printed circuit boards. Yeah, these things are just too jam packed together. There's some people with really, really good um good at still fixing some of the stuff like that, but as surface mount and all of that goes through, it's getting more and more difficult to do anything. Brian Vandenheimer, Texan R9012, $30, not junk, incredible performer for price. Pretty surprising. Absolutely. um, Bob says 100 parts in a radio is 100 possible problems. Fewer parts equals more reliability. And that's one of the reasons why the chips today, these chips are so darn reliable compared to the days we had, a huge circuit board with tons of things on it. George Ferguson, nice to have you here. Thanks for great information on his channel. And Scotland, nice to have you here, my friend. Yogi, my father used to work at a radio factory in Hong Kong back in the 70s, 80s. That factory used to make radios for Zenith, from multiband receivers with shortwave. They just paid attention. Yep. But once upon a time, people thought made in Japan was junk. Yeah. When and Back to the Future, when he goes back to 1955, when Marty goes back to 1955 and tells Doc, and Doc Brown looks at the car and he sees that part that says made in Japan and says, "No wonder this doesn't work. It's a piece of crap. It's made in Japan." And he's all amazed when Marty tells him, "It's like, well, what do you mean? All the best stuff is made in Japan, you know?" But uh, the price paid absolutely will impact the intention at the factory on how well it is built. John Macam cold soldier joints can be the culprit on circuitry boards. Yep. Jason Roberts, I just heard one of the beacons on 14100. Don't know which one. I'm not on my computer and haven't downloaded the app yet. Bobby Burgess, be careful who you're blocking. I don't see the any offensive thing of blog or die there, unless I missed it for some reason. John Beckham, good old contact cleaner always is a good item to keep in your radio room. Yep. Yogi, 20 years time, your PL 990's LCD display may look dark than today, but they should turn on and let you hear CHU without problems. Lord Kitchener, thank you for the tip. Nice to have tips. Much appreciated. Like their system made in Japan was the best, but they not build much there as they make them in Korea and China now. Yep. And even the IN stuff is gonna one day finish by being just made in China or something or somewhere else. What happens is that big quality manufacturers move to China, but they move to China for lower cost of the labor. And let's face it, you got to be honest, they moved there because regulations are relaxed. So you can throw that crap toxic water in the river and nobody tells you, nobody says anything. There are banned manufacturing habits, unfortunately, that make them save money. But the big manufacturers, what they do is they go there with their own quality control and the way it has to be done. You know. Let's go down. Q, nice to have you on board from Halifax. Miss made in Canada stuff, yeah. I have the All American 5 receivers here with 5 tubes in them that have the made in Canada on it. And you're like, wow, used to be a time when we made radios. Oh, yeah, the chip storage is pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I saw something about that High 61 about the DeLorean. I don't remember where I heard it, but I saw something about that. Our JD Dakota, we had a big TV with those tubes. Seems every few weeks we had repair guys always coming out to the house. I mean, there used to be a time when TVs were totally unreliable. There used to be a time when, man, TV didn't last. Today you buy a TV. I mean, look at everything. Our radios, we talk about the radios. Look at how $100 shortwave portable is great. Last year's is so sensitive and does better than a lot of the stuff from the past. And look at for our salary. I remember my dad buying a 20-inch TV in 1981 for like 400 or 500 bucks. That was a lot of money back in 1981 for 20-inch. Today, for for that same 400, if you go on the cheap side, you can almost get a 50-inch flat screen TV for that price. And it's going to be more reliable than that cheap TV from 1981. Keegan the Xer had a light bulb that was made in Canada. Wow. Zen Faros confirmed the benefit of contact cleaner. When my wife he used FRG7 for a present, needed some CC on the pots, contact cleaner, and rotary switches, and went from sort of working to working like new. My WDX50 is now a proud new member of the Canadian International DX Club. Woohoo! Welcome aboard. Oh, I just heard one of the beacons. I heard a Morse code. John Beckham, a company's bottom line is usually measured with its labor costs. Yep. I mean, labor is probably what's the most expensive in general in, hiring people is what's the most expensive for a company most of the time. And, well, you go somewhere where you don't have to pay them well. And China has a problem with that. We enjoy our stuff. We enjoy our radios like the Texan. I'd like to see how happy the employees at Texan in China are, though. Oh yeah, they have a job, but at what cost? It's like Foxconn, which is making a lot of the world's electronic stuff, including a lot of computers and Mac computers. When that report came out that employees had to sleep on the floor next to their workbench, you look at that and you're like, wow. And they had how many hours a day? Pretty crazy. Block or die, the drugstore had a tube tester. Yeah. Like to sis up, yeah. Well, I had a Panasonic. I had a Toshiba TV that didn't last it lasted about 4 years, a 50-inch. And I mean, Toshiba is not technically a cheap brand. Sometimes it's just, luck. When we have one device fail, one thing for sure is that we can't base our opinion of that on the fact that failed because we only had one. We can go online and see how many people it failed. That Toshiba I had that failed after 4 years, there was a problem with it that when you go online, everybody was complaining about that after 3 or 4 years only. So, I think what I often say is that every manufacturer has his bad product and his good product. And sometimes it's not necessarily intentional. Sometimes the bad product comes because they chose a part from a manufacturer. That's what happened with the Toshiba TV I had, the 50-inch. What happened with the 50-inch was that you had to they had a chip in it, and that chip over years of use, because the chip became very hot, the overeating of that chip made it go bad after a certain amount of time, which was usually from 3 to 4 years, depending on how bright your screen was. And Toshiba didn't intentionally make that TV to not last. What happened is that the manufacturer of that chip, could have lied, could have said, oh no, this thing is capable of, or just didn't know it had a flaw. And the flaw was that, well, maybe it needed a heat sink on top. Because some people that had that TV that were, good with fixes would open the TV, put a heat sink on the chip, and the TV would never have that problem because the heat sink would actually help the chip stay cooler. So it works today. I gave it to a friend of mine that is good with electronics. I told him what chip he had to replace, and he fixed it, and it works today. Works great. He's using it as a TV. So it's not necessarily always because a manufacturer didn't do the things right. Sometimes, the parts where they come from is a problem. Look at all the good IN stuff that ended up going bad quickly because there was one manufacturer of capacitors that actually produced them real bad, and the capacitors would actually swell and leak real quick. And I mean, it hit so many manufacturers when that happened. You know. Yogi says, in my honest opinion, a lot of manufacturers in China have learned good quality control and design practices through the years. If you know many, if you throw money at things, you will get the quality you want. Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's obvious that there are some things that China stole from others. But who hasn't? I would like to see what country in the world, including US and Canada, has never stolen anything, an idea or some manufacturing process from some other country and used it. We got to be careful with how we process who screws up who in all of the things around the world. I think we all are guilty of it at some point. WWVCHU check. Okay, let's check it out. So let's start with CHU. I'm going to put myself in AM. CHU 3330. There we go. That's one. Pretty good signal. C7850. Not really hearing it. I could barely see a little something, so it seems to be there. 14670, never hear it, so nothing there. WWV 25,000. Nothing. 20,000. Not very strong, but it's there on 20. Getting better. So that's 20 megahertz. 15. It's there on 15. Really good on 10. Barely audible on 5 because it's too early. And I won't even try 2.5 at this time. King and the Xter's got a Panasonic RF 2800 from 1978 since 2008. What else do we have? David's Radio Room. My most reliable TV was a Sony bought in 1980 and still worked when I recycled it a couple of years ago. I had that 27-inch Sony CRT here that if I had a house with a lot of space, I'd still have it because I'd still be using it with some of my old computers like the Commodore. But I mean, that thing was big, took so much space, weighed a ton. What do? You end up, okay, I'm not going to use that anymore. And I don't have the space for it. But honestly, I kind of broke my heart to depart from it somehow. It was like, it still works, man. And you know what? Especially now today, there's some kind of I don't know if this nostalgia, if I can call it nostalgia. There's some kind of, let's call it nostalgia of seeing a good old CRT TV working, especially when you know a little bit of electronics and thinking of how it works and how it does what it does, and the high voltages that you can almost kill yourself, or you can even kill yourself. You know, it's so um so weird. There's something about it. I mean, but what the hell am I going to do? It takes too much space. Like I said, RJDA Dakota, I think every manufacturer might have one model or one series that is a bad series for X reason. It could be, like I said, a part that comes from one of the suppliers that's bad and they don't know about it. Patrick Moore, missed my old Toshiba laptop. Don't think it ever died. Some of their old laptops has a gas display. Yeah, the first ones. I still have my Toshiba, my i5 from 2000 and that thing is from 2013, 14. Works great. Keegan DXer, my dad had a Sony color TV sometime between late 90s and early 2000s. Kev Michael, nice to have you here. 15720 Radio New Zealand. Received on the same G and 909X. Patrick Moore's got a Philco. Black and white TV from 1982. Like their Sysop, I love tube, especially tube amps. Solitary radio listener, good evening. Nice to have you on board from Southern Illinois. Yeah, for radio knobs, Greg, I'd recommend more of those contact cleaners than just compressed air or something. Yeah. Jeff King, my second Texan, I bought PL660 went bad in 3 months. I still thought bought more Texans, no problem. Just got a bad one. 14 Texans now, no problem. Yeah, it always can happen that you have one bad luck. My of all my Texan radios, the only one that I had a problem with was my PL680 that the encoder jammed, but we were able actually fast load was able to we opened it up, put some sewing machine oil, and it's still a little stiff, but it works and it tunes. I blame it a little bit on maybe leaving the radio in the sun. It was a hot day. It was at Perry Island when it happened, and the radio was like at in the full sun for maybe 15-20 minutes, and it was a hot day, so temperature inside the radio probably rose real high. That could have had a bad problem with the encoder, but apart from that, I never had any problems with any of the Texan radios I have here. Yeah, John Beckham, these Tivdio Reticus and Prunus radios are the most basic cheaps radios that use the DSP radio chip with almost nothing else in it. And it's at the most basic, so they don't perform that great. BZNRLD CHU 7850 weak but readable in Oregon Coast. Kevin Michael, WWVH in Hawaii, and WWV Colorado on 10. Yeah, famous command of the Commodore 64 that I still use today because I have the Commodore 128 that has Commodore 64 mode and everything. Take care, Mike WX50. Stay safe. Thanks for the tip once again. Saudi radio listener, the Grinding branded Satellite 750 I had 4 years ago was very problematic. It had a lot of issues. Bob WA2 SQQ, I worked for Panasonic. Older had TVs used an aluminum substrate on panels. Many other brands no longer use it to decrease weight, so they fail much faster. Yeah, we don't see a lot of Sony stuff. Kevin Michael. Actually, the electronics division of Sony is terribly in a deficit. It loses a lot of money. The only things that um, the only thing that um, that really works for Sony right now is their division with the PlayStation gaming machine. John K6RXD, augmented reality interface AI, machine learning, satellite internet will impact our hobby in the next 5-10 years. John Beckham, I remember as a little boy in the early 60s how picture replacements were so very common. A booming TV repair service. Yep. J Dakota has a JVC size 32-inch CRT. Take care, Greg. See you on Saturday. So Keegan DXer's dad, W9JF, did TV repair. Cool. Texan PL880, absolutely. Great radio. Definitely. Bonne nuit, Christian Marcoux. Fais attention à toi. Take care. Look at that. I think there's kind of 64 emulators for PCs nowadays. Oh yeah, you can emulate a Commodore on your smartphone. There's emulators for that on PCs, and there's a lot of the makeshift Commodore gaming boxes that are sold like on eBay are all done on these Arduino and whatever, these small computers. I'm not fond of that. I like the real machine to do stuff, so I already have my real Commodore computer, like my real Amiga 500, my real Atari 1040 ST. I find that much more fun and interesting to have the real machine perform things today as it did. The only thing I did with my machines is I bought the flash drive thing, so it's like my Commodore 128 has plugged in where you should usually Raspberry Pi. Most of them are done with Raspberry Pis. My Commodore 128, where you plug the floppy drive, I have a it's a little circuit board that can read SD cards, and chip on it emulates the a drive, so you can go through and load any images that you download from the internet. So it's still the real machine that actually is running it. It's just that it's much easier to deal with that than real floppies. And I did the same for the Amiga 500. I decided to do the same. It now has a USB thumb drive reader, so I can actually just download Amiga images. Yeah, a lot of the companies moved to other stuff. Definitely. So yeah, Panasonic has moved out of the general consumer market for the most part. They used to make what was known as the best flat panel TVs around when they made them, and but unfortunately, the problem with the manufacturers and the consumer market comes back to again and again and again to what we were discussing earlier. We all don't want to pay a lot for our electronics. And this has an impact because if you want to bring out a really good flat screen TV, you will be paying more for it because of the way it has to be designed to have a better quality picture and so on. So the thing is, these big companies feel the pressure. So they sell a better TV, but it's also more expensive. And people go out in the store, look at TVs, and they, they're like, well, I'm going to buy that $600 TV rather than $1,000 TV. I'm saving money and it looks good. So it's kind of a spiral that all of the companies that were in the consumer market that were well-known brands are all going to something else because they're not making any money anymore. Last I heard, the Panasonic TVs, when they were last manufactured, they were losing money on each TV they would manufacture. Just couldn't get, they just couldn't sell them at the price that they needed to sell them. And so they sold them lower to try to sell more, but they were never able to make money out of them. So what happens? Well, they just get out of the consumer market and do something else. There are other parts where you can do stuff for government agencies or whatever that is way more lucrative. Rush Time Machine 5085 coming in great in Rhode Island on the Ceodon D808 with a real up wire. Is the Ethon Elite 750 that big radio worth getting for $400? I would not pay $400 for it personally. Friend of Crows. Kev Michael had the Sony ICF 2010 in the 80s, good radio, but the digital frequency counter went out. Deshmanar, I do see. I've not that long ago. I've seen RCA branded flat panel TVs at stores here, but they seem to be more difficult to find than in the past. Sharp haven't seen in a long time. GA Dakota, Panasonic still alive and well, but not much into consumer electronics. No longer uses the Matsushita label. Kevin Michael, here's 593 and 602, medium wave, and HK1 and 2 from Tokyo, Japan. Solitary radio listener, remember there seemed like 100 with little knobs on the back of the old 60s and 70s console TVs. Also, that little white dot that stayed for 10 minutes when you turned it off. I remember that. It was always kind of a funny thing when you switch off the TV and you're in the dark and you'd see that little dot slowly fade away. That was crazy. I always wondered. I know that the CRTs, the tubes, were really the glass had a lot of lead in it, and one of the reasons was to minimize the amount of radiation. But I still often wondered when I was young and I was playing with the TV with the antenna, and I was so close to the tube. I sometimes, even back then, because I knew a lot about still, electronics and stuff. Back then, I was wondering how much of these little electrons actually go through and maybe hit me, and maybe I'll have cancer or something. You know, it's something that I always think about. And those are repaired. If you guys remember, you'd open the TV cover in the back, and you had a warning about X-rays because of the high voltage on the CRT tube. Mad Reality Extra did the same with my Amiga. Some of my old floppy disks stopped working. I also use flash card. My old game consoles and original cartridges are too expensive due to retro collecting. Yep. John Beckham, if I purchase the Kato K29, I will let you know if it's a Reticus clone. Yeah, I have the feeling I saw somebody bought it on the is it on the official Shortwave channel that somebody posted he bought it or he got it? And when I looked at the picture, I was like, that looks like some clone. You know, a lot of the companies got purchased by other companies and the brand names disappeared. But I haven't seen a anything sharp in a long time. Solitary radio listener, would be neat to see what kind of shortwave receiver Drake, JRC, Kenwood, and others would make today if they were still in the receiver business. You know, they do something like the what ICOM does, the ICOM ICR 8600, an SDR based radio with knobs, basically. They would all do that. I mean, that's the future. That's the way that these are capable of giving us not just performance, but so many features. Um, and I would pretty much guess that they would be in that range. You know, let's face it, the ICOM ICR 8600 is a computer and running, in a software defined receiver. It's just that they, added the knobs and the features to make it more like a desktop radio. Sorry, guys. Yep, cost issues, as Bob says, WA2 SQQ. But they were known to be some of the best TVs out there. And I mean everything Panasonic made. And I got a Panasonic boombox here that's from 1990, still works great. Still plays 4-track cassettes. I mean, Panasonic was a great, great brand. I always enjoyed. If I had the choice between Panasonic or anything else, I was always choosing Panasonic for what I was buying. Oh, JD Code, the front of those CRTs did throw off quite a bit of radiation from it. Remember that your medium wave radio goes crazy when you get it close to your old TV. I always was, that I actually that worried me when I was young because when I would play with the TV and the antennas and being so close all the time, I always was wondering. I said, am I going to die from cancer at some point because of the radiation coming out of it? King in the Xer's got a 13-inch Sharp TV from 97 since 2008, though not much used since the early 2010s. And not at all since 2020. John Beckham, I heard that the Kato K829 originally came on the market back in 2014. Yeah, that's an old model. It's not anything new. It's not anything new. So the radio listener, my job as a kid in the mid-70s. I was the remote for my father when he watched TV. Hey, get up, turn that radio channel, that TV to channel 3. We all did that at some point, I guess. And then we got cable at home and we had that Gerald clicking with the clicking buttons that had something like 50 feet of wire to it. It seemed that wire was so long, it was crazy. And tripping over the wire so many times with the Gerald remote flying through the room. These things were built like tanks, man. They were crazy. Oh, man. Kenwood bought up the JVC division a while back. Huh. Dr. Sisop, all the UK locals on 2 meters says I sound funny here. And always says, why are you using a strange call sign? Blogadai K29 has a display firmware option on the model you buy. Today was 2015 firmware. Yeah. Mario the Extra says Sharp still exists in the UK. They have HD TVs, but I think they no longer owned by original Japanese founders. No, I think Sharp was purchased by some other company at some point. They sold Sharp. Arknoff Still see some Toshiba TVs, but I recall hearing that they wanted to get out at some point. So it wouldn't be impossible that they might already be out. Reticus V115. The one that I had was at least pre-pandemic, so 2018, 19 at least. So Keegan the Extra says his dad, W9JF, worked at CBS station WISC-TV Channel 3 in Madison, Wisconsin. Wow, cool. Cool. When WKRP in Cincinnati came on CBS, all non-essential work stopped. Oh, man. Kevin Michael, remember my mom said, do not be close to that TV with radiation. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Don't be close to the TV. You're going to ruin your eyes. Remember that one? Jason Roberts, time to go to bed. Take care, my friend. Always nice to have you here. See you Saturday, 20 hours UTC. Yeah, Zenith. I have here an old, I need to plug it in. I need to plug it in one day. I have an old Zenith VCR, a VHS VCR from 1984. It still works. Still works. That thing is built like a tank. So Blogger Dice says Reticus V115 came out in January 2016. It could be some kind of variation of it. Matt says I was changing batteries for my parents' smoke detectors and came across an old one with a radioactive element. It says apparently those ones are good forever as long as they have a good battery. Yeah, the ones that have radioactive elements in it pretty much last forever. Absolutely. Oh yeah, the Grundig brand was purchased by, I think it was a Turkish company that purchased it, something like that. And that's why we have Grundig on stuff that's evidently not really Grundig. Bob Lewin, Sharp was bought by Foxconn in 2016. And there you go. Zenith got bought by LG. And Reticus was formerly Tivdio. So, especially when these things like Tivdio, Kato, and Reticus, we can't really put a date on their radio based on the name, because the names pop up and go away. But when you look in the basics, they're all done at the same place in the same factory. G Dakota Zenith VCR was probably a Panasonic rebuild. It's possible. I don't know. It's really possible. Actually, I should check the model number. There must be some information on it on the internet. It'd be interesting to see it. Willow Grove. Where's the cat? Sleeping in the bedroom. Keegan the Extra had an Emerson VCR from mid 2000 and had the Sanyo brand on the circuit board. Yeah, not surprised. John Beckham, what is a firmware 2015 and Kato all about? Well, these are, it's like the DSP chip, the silicon integrated. They have some code in it to have it working. They have a firmware. So basically, the firmware will be part of why they have certain features and how they work. And by updating the firmware, they can fix bugs and change stuff. So that's why some will have a firmware number or a date or a year to tell you which is the last version. All the Texan receivers that have the DSP chip in it all have a firmware number, and Texan updates the firmware from time to time to fix some of the bugs that they see. One famous example, the Texan PL330 had a bug where it had reverse tuning on SSB, and the firmware that was 3305 or before, and or even before 3305. And then they actually issued one that was 3305 and then 3306. And that fixed the bug because the firmware fixed the flaw. Because they are kind of small computers at the same time. I had a Fisher stereo here, and it was great. Actually, it was a higher end. Fisher had some high-end stuff in there. Um, Fujitsu. Remember Fujitsu PCs? There were Fujitsu's laptops. Man, a long time ago. So, hey guys, I'm hearing the neighbors, and I don't want to annoy them too much with my loud voice. So, I'm going to start shutting down and saying good night to everybody. Thanks for everybody for the tips. Really, really was appreciated. We're going to be back on Saturday. So Saturday we're going to continue talking about radio. We're going to tune the bands and have a lot of fun. And we're going to, of course, talk radio as usual. It's always fun to be here on the live show, and always cool to share and interesting discussions for sure. So it's a lot of fun and sometimes these going back in time also with memories of our old electronics and stuff. It's kind of cool when you think about it. So thanks everybody. Always nice to be here. Stay safe. 73, and we'll be back on Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 20 hours UTC. And don't forget, once again, next Wednesday will be June the 8th. I will not be here as I am attending with Sheldon Harvey the Kraftwerk's 3D concert. And thanks for the guys that joined CIDX today. Cool to have you on board. A great club and a fantastic little publication called The Messenger. And it's fun to be. You can join our Zoom meeting, monthly Zoom meeting also. So pretty cool. Oh yeah, Greg, I got two VCRs actually here that are in working order. I've got a Panasonic from 2000 and the old Zenith from 1984, both in working order. And I do have a box of old VCR tapes here, so it's kind of cool. I need to check that out at some point. Matt says, "Have fun at concerts. Saw Kraftwerk 3D back in 2015. Was terrific. Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun." So see you Saturday, guys. Thank you so much for being here, being great fans. Stay safe, everybody, and see you soon on the channel.